Los Angeles Boulevard isn't the glittering paradise you've seen in movies. Behind the polished veneer of celebrity homes and sun-drenched beaches lies a different reality, one that tourists rarely expect but can't stop talking about. The stories of those who came seeking Hollywood magic but encountered shocking dangers have been whispered about for years. Now, it's time to reveal what travel guides won't tell you. You might think you know Los Angeles, the iconic Hollywood sign standing proud against clear blue skies, the Walk of Fame with its glittering stars honoring entertainment legends, palm trees swaying in gentle ocean breezes. But there's a shadow side to the City of Angels that most visitors never anticipate until they're caught in its grip. And what happens next can change everything. I've spent months gathering testimonies from tourists who experienced the darkest side of Los Angeles, from elaborate scams targeting vulnerable visitors to horrifying encounters in places they thought were safe. What I discovered will make you question everything you thought you knew about America's entertainment capital. And the most disturbing part? These dangers are growing more common every single day. When Emily and Marcus planned their dream vacation to Los Angeles last summer, they envisioned star spotting on Rodeo Drive and taking perfect Instagram photos on Venice Beach. Instead, they found themselves victims of a sophisticated scam that cost them $3,000 and left them stranded miles from their hotel in a neighborhood police later told them no tourist should ever visit. Their story isn't unique. It's becoming the norm, and what local authorities are doing about it might shock you even more than the crimes themselves. The truth is that beneath the glamorous surface, Los Angeles harbors 10 specific dangers that tourists face with alarming regularity. From follow-home robberies orchestrated by organized criminal networks to encounters with an increasingly desperate homeless population, these aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a pattern that's transforming the tourist experience in ways that city officials desperately try to downplay. But the evidence is becoming impossible to ignore. Tonight, we pull back the curtain on the dark reality of Los Angeles tourism. The dangers aren't random, they're predictable. And once you know what to look for, you'll never see the City of Angels the same way again. The Hollywood Walk of Fame stands as perhaps the most iconic tourist destination in Los Angeles. Millions of visitors come each year, expecting glamour and excitement as they place their hands in the imprints of their favorite stars. What they don't expect is what Jennifer Coleman from Chicago encountered on her first morning in the city. "We arrived at the Walk of Fame around 9 in the morning, thinking we'd beat the crowds," Jennifer recalled, her voice still shaky months after the incident. "The first thing that hit me was the smell, urine and marijuana everywhere. Then I noticed people sleeping on the actual stars. One man was clearly having some kind of episode, screaming and following tourists. When we tried to leave, someone threw something sticky on my husband's jacket, and suddenly 3 people surrounded us, offering to help clean it while trying to reach into our bags." This experience, what locals call the tourist splash and grab, is the first of the 10 dangerous experiences that have become alarmingly common for visitors. What makes it particularly troubling is how it transforms the very symbol of Hollywood glamour into a hunting ground for opportunistic criminals. The tactic is simple but effective. Create a distraction, isolate the tourist, then separate them from their valuables, or worse. Police reports show that petty theft around the Hollywood Walk of Fame increased 17% last year alone, with tourists making up over 80% of the victims. But what's most disturbing is how these criminals have evolved their techniques, creating elaborate scenarios that prey specifically on visitors' expectations of Hollywood friendliness. James Dawson, a former LAPD officer who now runs a private security firm, explains the psychology behind these schemes. These criminals know exactly what tourists expect when they come to Hollywood. They play on the visitors' excitement and their desire to have a positive interaction with locals. By the time the tourist realizes what's happening, they've already been victimized. The second dangerous experience tourists frequently report comes when they venture downtown after dark. The transformation from bustling daytime shopping district to dangerous nighttime environment happens with startling speed. As sunset approaches, many streets empty of legitimate businesses and fill with individuals suffering from untreated mental illness and addiction issues. Sandra and Mike Peterson from Minneapolis learned this the hard way during their anniversary trip. "We had dinner at a nice restaurant downtown and decided to walk back to our hotel," Sandra explained. "It was only 8 blocks, and the Maps app showed it as the fastest route. But 3 blocks in, everything changed. Tents lined the sidewalks. People were openly using drugs, and someone started following us, asking for money, then demanding it. We ended up running the last few blocks, terrified." What the Petersons accidentally discovered was Skid Row, a 50-block area that contains one of the largest stable populations of homeless individuals in America. The boundaries between tourist areas and these dangerous zones are often just a single street, a fact that many hotel concierges and tourist information centers conveniently fail to mention to visitors. "There's an unwritten rule in the Los Angeles tourism industry," explains Diane Rodriguez, who worked for 10 years in hotel management before becoming a travel safety consultant. "No one wants to scare the visitors, so no one tells them which areas to avoid. It's considered bad for business, so tourists wander into dangerous areas without any warning." This information gap has led to the third common danger, the rideshare trap. When tourists order rideshare vehicles to pick them up from popular nightlife spots or tourist attractions after dark, they often find themselves waiting on dimly lit corners, perfect targets for criminals watching for distracted visitors staring at their phones. Multiple police reports describe a similar pattern. Tourists waiting for their ride are approached by someone claiming to be their driver. Once in the unofficial vehicle, they're taken to ATMs and forced to withdraw cash or hand over valuables. In more sophisticated versions of this scam, the criminal actually cancels the legitimate rideshare by hacking public Wi-Fi connections tourists are using. These aren't opportunistic crimes, explains cybersecurity expert Ravi Mehta. These are coordinated attacks that combine technology exploitation with physical intimidation. And tourists are the perfect victims because they don't know the city, often don't have local contacts, and are reluctant to involve police while on vacation. The fourth danger emerged more recently but has quickly become one of the most reported problems for visitors: the celebrity home scam. Tourists eager to see where the stars live pay for tours promising exclusive access to celebrity neighborhoods and homes. What they get instead is often a dangerous deception. Brian and Lisa Turner from Atlanta paid $80 each for what was advertised as a VIP celebrity mansion tour last April. "The van picked us up at our hotel, which seemed legitimate," Brian recalled. "But instead of going to Beverly Hills, the driver took us to some rundown neighborhood and said it was a secret celebrity area. When we complained, he became threatening and said we could either get out there or pay another $100 to continue the tour. We were miles from our hotel with no cell service." The Turners were victims of what authorities now recognize as organized scam rings targeting Hollywood tourists. These operations often use realistic-looking websites, professional brochures distributed in hotel lobbies, and even fake uniforms to appear legitimate. By the time tourists realize they've been scammed, they've already been driven to isolated areas where they're vulnerable to additional crimes. These tour scams are particularly effective because they play on the celebrity obsession that brings many people to Los Angeles in the first place, explains tourism researcher Dr. Maya Phillips. Tourists are looking for an exclusive experience, something their friends back home haven't seen. That desire makes them willing to ignore red flags they might otherwise notice. The fifth dangerous experience reveals how even legitimate tourist attractions can become hazardous due to what locals call the camera trap. Tourists focused on taking photographs often become so absorbed in getting the perfect shot that they lose awareness of their surroundings, a vulnerability that doesn't go unnoticed by those looking for easy targets. This is exactly what happened to the Johnson family at the famous Griffith Observatory. While capturing panoramic views of the city, their unattended backpack containing passports, cash, and electronics disappeared in less than 30 seconds. Security footage later showed a well-dressed couple who appeared to be helping them frame their photo, while an accomplice smoothly picked up their belongings. The distraction techniques have become incredibly sophisticated, says Detective Maria Hernandez, who specializes in crimes against tourists. We're not talking about simple pickpocketing anymore. These are coordinated teams using psychological techniques to create specific blind spots in their victims' awareness. The sixth danger emerges from Los Angeles' notorious traffic, combined with confusing navigation apps, what locals call the wrong turn nightmare. Tourists following GPS directions often find themselves unexpectedly routed through high-crime neighborhoods when attempting to avoid congestion. This happened to Australian visitors Kate and Rob Fleming, who were directed off the highway during rush hour. "The app promised it would save us 20 minutes, Kate explained. "Instead, we ended up in an area where people immediately started approaching our car at stoplights. One man tried to open our door. We had no idea where we were or how to get back to a main road." The Flemings' experience highlights a growing problem: navigation apps optimized for speed rather than safety. These algorithms don't distinguish between a shortcut through an upscale residential neighborhood and one through an area with high violent crime rates. For tourists unfamiliar with Los Angeles geography, these technological misdirections can have dangerous consequences. Many visitors don't realize that in Los Angeles, conditions can change dramatically from one block to the next, explains urban planner Victor Nguyen. You can go from a tourist-friendly shopping district to a high-crime area just by turning a corner. Without local knowledge, tourists are completely dependent on technology that prioritizes efficiency over safety. The seventh danger specifically targets visitors seeking nightlife experiences, the drink price scam. This elaborate scheme begins with friendly locals approaching tourists at popular bars, suggesting they know a better, more authentic spot nearby. Once at the new location, which is actually working with the scammers, tourists find themselves facing outrageously inflated bills and intimidating staff who demand payment. Michael Wilson from London encountered this scam on his first night in Los Angeles. "Two women started chatting with us at a bar on Sunset Boulevard, saying they knew a place with better music just around the corner," he recalled. "The new bar seemed normal when we arrived, but after 2 rounds of drinks, they handed us a bill for over $600. When we protested, 2 large men appeared and escorted us to an ATM. Law enforcement officials confirm this scam has become increasingly common, with organized networks targeting tourists in Hollywood, downtown, and Venice Beach areas. The operations often involve multiple parties: the friendly locals who make initial contact, the bar staff who serve overpriced drinks, and security personnel who intimidate victims into paying. What makes this scam particularly effective is that it begins with something tourists are often seeking: an authentic local experience, explains sociologist Dr. Elaine Richards. The desire to go beyond tourist traps and experience the real Los Angeles makes visitors vulnerable to people who seem to be offering exactly that. The eighth dangerous experience involves what local authorities have termed follow-home robberies, a crime pattern that specifically targets tourists who display signs of wealth. Criminals observe visitors at high-end shopping districts, restaurants, or nightclubs, then follow them back to their hotels or rental properties before confronting them in less public settings. This alarming trend made national headlines when it happened to the Brennan family from Boston. After shopping on Rodeo Drive, they were followed 17 miles back to their vacation rental in Santa Monica, where 3 armed individuals confronted them in the driveway, taking over $70,000 in purchases and jewelry. What's particularly concerning about this crime trend is its organized nature, explains LAPD Captain Jonathan Tippett, who heads the Follow Home Robbery Task Force. "We're seeing coordination among multiple vehicles, with spotters identifying potential targets and communicating with robbery teams." This isn't opportunistic crime. It's calculated and specifically targeting visitors who may be carrying cash or expensive items. The ninth danger emerges from the environmental hazards that tourists often underestimate: the health and safety risks associated with Los Angeles's massive homeless encampments. Beyond the obvious sadness of witnessing such human suffering, these encampments create public health concerns that visitors rarely anticipate. Medical professionals at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center report treating tourists for infections, respiratory issues, and injuries related to unsanitary conditions or accidental contact with discarded items near encampments. Dr. Samantha Lewis, an emergency medicine specialist, notes, "We're seeing visitors with skin infections from inadvertent contact with contaminated surfaces, respiratory issues from exposure to smoke from encampment fires, and occasionally injuries from stepping on discarded needles or other sharp objects." The 10th and perhaps most insidious danger involves targeted cybercrime, specifically hacking attempts that occur when tourists connect to public Wi-Fi networks in popular locations. Cybercriminals have established sophisticated operations focusing specifically on areas with high tourist concentrations, creating legitimate-looking but fraudulent networks designed to capture personal data. Technology consultant Edward Park explains, "These hackers set up Wi-Fi networks with names like Hollywood_guest or LAX free Wi-Fi that tourists naturally select. Once connected, everything from banking passwords to identity information becomes vulnerable." We've documented cases where visitors' credit cards were being used for fraudulent purchases while they were still taking photos at tourist attractions. This digital danger is particularly troubling because the crime occurs invisibly. Tourists often don't realize their information has been compromised until days or weeks later, making it nearly impossible to track when and where the security breach occurred. As our investigation into these 10 dangers concludes, a troubling pattern emerges. The very qualities that make Los Angeles attractive to tourists, its celebrity culture, diverse neighborhoods, and promise of authentic experiences, are being weaponized against visitors in increasingly sophisticated ways. Yet, despite the growing frequency of these incidents, official tourism materials rarely mention these risks. Hotel staff are often instructed not to alarm guests with safety warnings. And in the age of social media, where everyone curates perfect vacation images, the true stories of tourist dangers remain largely unshared. Jack Ramirez, who retired after 25 years with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, puts it bluntly, "The tourism industry doesn't want these stories told. There's too much money at stake." But the reality is that Los Angeles has specific dangers that target visitors, and people deserve to know about them before they arrive, not after they become victims. As darkness falls over the Hollywood Hills, the city transforms. The glamorous facade glows with artificial light, while shadows deepen in the spaces between. This is the real Los Angeles, a city of stark contrasts and hidden dangers, where the line between dream vacation and nightmare scenario can be crossed in a single unguarded moment. Empty stars, empty promises, empty assurances of safety that never materialize. Perhaps there's still hope for Los Angeles tourism, a path toward greater transparency and genuine security for the millions who visit each year. But that path begins with acknowledging the dangers that exist, not pretending they don't. If you've experienced these hidden dangers of Los Angeles, share your story in the comments. And subscribe to see our upcoming investigation into which major tourist city was just rated even more dangerous than Los Angeles. The answer might surprise you.